In this video, I'm going to talk about the types of abuse children are subjected to when they grow up in a narcissistic family dynamic, in particular, the narcissistic mother. I'm going to discuss abuse tactics used and why the narcissistic mother deploys these tactics. At the end of this video, I'm going to give real-life examples of physical and psychological abuse I endured as a child at the hands of my narcissistic mother. I do need to give a trigger warning because the things I will discuss are very sadistic. So let's get started. The narcissistic mother will intentionally create conflict between siblings and family members, ultimately inducing competition among everyone within the narcissistic family dynamic. This is done through triangulation, gaslighting, and lies about the child's behavior. When a child finally emotionally reacts, fights back, or engages in any form of outburst, the child's behavior is seen by others as dysfunctional, which is actually a result of the neglect and repeated psychological and even physical abuse the narcissistic mother is inflicting on the child. This is also referred to as reactive abuse. The narcissistic mother will often dog whistle the child in public to induce an emotional reaction from the child, to give the appearance the child is suffering from behavioral issues. The narcissistic mother will assign roles to her children, the scapegoat and the golden child. I am going to focus on the scapegoat in this video. The scapegoat is the child that becomes the target of blame for the chaos and dysfunction the narcissistic mother creates within the family. The narcissistic mother will train the entire family unit to abuse, belittle, harass, and bully the scapegoated child. The scapegoated child is groomed to believe everything is their fault, including their parents' cruelty, leading the child to believe they deserve the hatred and punishments they are being subjected to. The scapegoated child is outcasted and becomes the person the narcissistic mother and family unit ultimately blames and shames. The scapegoated child becomes a punching bag for the entire family system. Family, friends, doctors, law enforcement, teachers, and other associates of the narcissistic mother have been brainwashed to believe the scapegoat is mentally unstable, which is actually a projection of the narcissistic mother's true self. The narcissistic mother goes to great lengths to protect her image and reputation, which includes ruining the reputation of her own child, so no one will believe the child when speaking up about the psychological and physical abuse. Scapegoating a child is extremely detrimental to the child's life and development due to the fact that the child's abusers are consistently reinforcing the belief that the scapegoat is the problem and deserves the punishments and harassing behaviors. The friends and family of the narcissistic mother become part of the narcissist's shared psychosis and are trained to project their insecurities and deficits onto the scapegoat in group efforts through bullying, harassment, severe devaluation, and even sexual or physical abuse within the family. The scapegoat will spend most of their life defending themselves against the accusations and lies fabricated by the narcissistic mother and narcissistic family unit, also known as smear campaigns. When the scapegoat is unsuccessful at proving their innocence and surrounded by people in agreement with the narcissistic mother's delusion, it renders the scapegoat helpless, confused, and riddled with shame. The scapegoated child is then pulled into the narcissist's shared psychosis and brainwashed to accept blame and fault for the narcissistic mother's cruelty and punishments. It is extremely difficult for the scapegoated child to receive justice for the narcissistic mother's intense abuse. Scapegoating also happens throughout adulthood. Children mimic their environments and will continue to reenact this family drama into adulthood with their significant others, friends, and social interactions, relying solely on the skills learned as a child to get their needs met and obtain some level of acceptance. The scapegoated child had to constantly work to please the family unit in order to get their needs met and had little to no sense of self-worth and a lack of boundaries. This often results in the child being scapegoated by other toxic groups of people throughout adulthood as well. Now, before I tell you a few personal examples of the sadistic and severe physical and psychological abuse I suffered as a child at the hands of my narcissistic mother and narcissistic family unit, please hit the like and subscribe button and follow me on TikTok for more informational videos on coercive control, by means of psychological abuse. Let's get started. Number 1. My mother would punch me directly in the face and hit me with objects. Here is a photo of me at 3 years old with a black eye from her punching me in the face. On one occasion, she threw a rotary telephone at my head. When I questioned her about this event, her response was, "It's your fault for walking in the way when I threw the phone." Now that is blame shifting. Number 2. My mother physically and violently abused me on a regular basis. I was constantly covered in bruises, cuts, and suffering from severe headaches. I would go to school beat up and get questioned by teachers, and then, of course, teased and bullied by other students. I finally told the school that my mother was punching me, beating me with household objects, etc., and Child Protective Services were called. During her interview with CPS, of course, my mother lied and told CPS that I was an unruly child that consistently misbehaved and that my disruptive behaviors were causing me to get beat up by the neighborhood kids. CPS believed my mother and left me there to continue to get physically and psychologically abused until I moved away for college. In fact, in January of 2023, this year, my mother violently assaulted me again and threatened my life if I ever spoke up about her abuse. It was also a threat and efforts to deter me from writing my book. The sergeant on the scene for the county sheriff's office refused to believe that a 70-year-old woman could inflict such physical violence. I did have to go to the hospital as my body was covered in bruises, lacerations, and I had to get x-rays from her punching me in the head and violently grabbing me and pulling me by my hair, causing whiplash. If you were to question my mother about this situation, she would instantly deploy an extreme gaslighting tactic called DARVO to avoid accountability. Each time I questioned my mother about this childhood experience, she states, "I did what I had to do to protect my job in my house. If I would have told the truth, then I would have lost my job and you wouldn't have had any place to live. Did you want to be homeless? I can't afford to lose my job because you want to tell people about our private business." If you were to question my mother about her assaulting me in January of 2023, this year, her response would be, "Ugh, I was just trying to get my car keys back. It wasn't that bad." Again, gaslighting and minimizing her abuse. Number 3. This is probably one of the most traumatizing of them all, especially because it happened on Christmas. My mother would wrap my Christmas presents in old aluminum vegetable cans with jagged, sharp edges. She would be very careful for herself to make sure that when she emptied out the can, washed it, stuck the present in it, and put the jagged lid back on top, not to cut herself, not to mess up her nails. So she would wrap my Christmas presents in old aluminum vegetable cans with jagged, sharp edges, and then would taunt me for being too careful and not excited enough when opening my gifts. And she would say that I was acting ungrateful, because I, was being slow or being careful and not excited enough. So to please my mother, I would rush in, excited, and just stick my hand right in there, excited to open the oddly shaped present, ultimately causing me to severely slice my hands open. It was extremely traumatizing, due to the blood and the pain. And if you were to ask my mother about this today, she would reply, "Oh, it wasn't that bad. I thought it would be fun for you to do something different." Now, her response is a form of gaslighting to minimize the severity of this type of sadistic abuse, along with gaslighting to make it seem as if she had my best interest at heart. So these are just a few of my experiences from a lifetime of physical and psychological abuse I have endured at the hands of my narcissistic mother. I have many more experiences and stories to share in future episodes. I hope this video helped someone out there know that you are not alone. So stay strong and keep getting the knowledge. You are going to be amazing. Thank you for watching and listening. Please give this video a thumbs up if you found this content useful, and don't forget to subscribe and follow me on TikTok for more videos on coercive control by means of psychological abuse.